Hey, what's wrong with you, man? You ain't subscribed yet? IUIC Atlanta Burning 2.0. What you waiting on? Get it done. Do it now.
Hey, get them clicks, get them likes, and subscribe. Do it now.
What club was that at?
That was admit that a lot of people don't even realize they.
I've called her. She hasn't responded. I've called her more than a few times.
With the Zulu Nation, I'm like, what the hell is this? I know nobody know what I'm talking about. You'll leave me on the island by myself. I don't know what the hell Bishop's talking about. That's what y'all do. Then after class, yeah, I knew what you were talking about. I just don't want to be caught out there. The hell is this? Get on my damn nerves. So read that again.
You ain't really about it if you ain't prepared to die. Talking about loyalty, but you ain't ready to ride. Get your mind right, he coming like a thief in the night. Is you ready? Is you ready? You ain't really about it if you ain't prepared to die. Talking about loyalty, but you ain't ready to ride. Get your mind right, he coming like a thief in the night. Is you ready? Is you ready? Laughing at your idol gods, looking like some Digimons. Babylon won't carry on, this dragon getting mini bombs. You can call me Daniel, son, you know I serve the living God. Yours is made of
Malachi. We are in the classroom here at IUIC Atlanta, all right? Yeah, you already know. Put my title up on the screen. Ain't no title. Anyway, title of this class is Old Children, New Truth. So first thing, you're like, hold on. What's this? Old children, new truth. I think, you think you know where it's going, but I don't think you quite know where it's going. All right, we're going to jump right into the scripts and then we'll explain. All right, give me Psalms chapter 127 and start at verse 3. Got Officer Jabez reading off camera. You already know.
Psalms chapter 127, verse 3. Lo, children are a heritage of the Lord, and the fruit of the womb is his reward.
So it's a lot of babies being born in Israel right now. All praise to the Lord. Spirits is coming back. Young prophets back on the earth. Young princesses back on the earth. And the Lord said that the fruit of the womb is our reward. Those children are our reward. Those children are our heritage. They are what's going to help carry our nation, our lineages, our bloodline, our laws, our commandments. They're going to be the ones carrying it into the next phase of life, right? He said that those are our heritage. Read on.
Verse 4. As arrows are in the hand of a mighty man, so are children of the youth.
Like arrows, when we think about arrows, you know what I'm saying? Like those are weapons. You know what I'm saying? Something that helps to defend from invaders or intruders or, you know what I'm saying? Arrows are used in a defense form. But he said our children are like arrows. Our children will be a form of defense for our nation. In their time, they'll be the ones that stand up, manfully and boldly for the Lord. Lord's willing. They'll be the ones that continue to push this truth, that continue to show our people, what repentance looks like. There'll be those new souls that maybe even a refreshing water to some of our people, through their actions and through their behaviors, right? Read on.
Happy is the man that have his quiver full of them. They shall not be ashamed, but they shall speak with the enemies in the gate.
So it says, happy is the man whose quiver is full of them. Happy is the man who have a lot of children, a lot of defense, a lot of weapons. That's a good thing for that man. And it's probably for that mother too. You understand? But one thing that for myself, I had never experienced having a young child in this truth. And sometimes, I talk with the brothers and even the sisters sometimes, and when they have, their young children, they're elated, and, you watch the little ones grow, and we get to see some of these young children. I remember seeing babies when I came in this troop. They were, tucked under their mom's blanket, high, and now they walking around, they talking, they performing at feast days. They're doing these things, and we get to see our children, develop in this truth. We get to see their spirits grow. We get to see what kind of spirit they have. We get to see all these different things about them, but that's an experience that I don't have. My experience is a little bit different. I have older children, okay? I mean, I know I look so young and so, debonair has, don't worry about that. Don't flatter me. But my children are older, and I'm to a point in this truth where experiencing teaching young adults. It's so much easier to sometimes instruct a little child, when it's just, hey, you feed them, you clothe them, you bring them to the Sabbath, you give them their snacks, you tell them don't jump off that couch, put that down. And I remember when in my, but prior to the truth, that was my experience with children. And then I had to wonder, what do I do now? How do I teach them now? And not only how do I teach them, but how do I learn to observe what I see in them to best guide them, to best instruct them, right? So really, this isn't a class for children. This is a class for you parents, us parents of adult children, right? You got a 20-year-old in this truth. That young man is able to go to war. That young woman is able at marital age. We have to become parents of adults. And guess what? Some of us don't have that experience. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm just as new at it as you are. You know what I'm saying? And that's the weird thing about being a parent. It's your first time at it the same time it's their first time at it. You understand? And that's something that we have to, keep in mind as we all grow and we all learn and we all keep developing this truth. Proverbs chapter 17 and verse 6.
Proverbs chapter 17, verse 6. Children's children are the crown of old men, and the glory of children are their fathers.
Right. So a lot of us, it says children's children, which would be grandchildren, and we don't have those. Some of us have those. It's some of you in this body that you have grandchildren in this truth. There's a sister, and I call her Sister Auntie Grandma because she has all three of those stages in the body. She has children in the body, she's an auntie in the body, and she's also a grandmother to a young soul in this body, right? But the Lord said that children's children are the crown of old men. Like it is a glorious thing for us to be able to see our children grow, develop, and then have their own children. And that's one of the things that I look forward to, in this particular walk that I'm on. Like, hey, I hope that I'm the kind of man that can guide my children to the point that they have children and they're still in this truth, and I get to experience having grandchildren in this truth. He said that's the crown of old men. Like that is something to look forward to as men in this truth. Even though we in Babylon is a whole nother animal. But that is still something that's glorious of the Lord, right? And then one of those things that we have to look forward to, and one of those things that we want to look forward to. I mean, because nobody wants to go and say, happily, a lot of us in Israel, we aren't burdened with the yoke of hating our children. As we see some of our people in the world, they hate their children. They're ready to get rid of them. They're ready to push them out at 18. You ain't going to listen. You got to get away from here type mentality, right? And that's not what we're burdened with. You know what I'm saying? All praises to the Lord that, we get to have another spirit in which we want to bring up our youth, right? And the same goes for our leadership, that they have all put certain things in place, and they had the foresight and the vision to help with those things, like youth violence seminars and the 300 program, to even help men to grow into men that can raise children. Young prophets, the young daughters of Sarah, Saving Sarah's Daughter, even all of the programs that leadership had the foresight to implement, because we are constantly learning. That's the one thing about this truth. We are constantly learning what and how to do these things. So read that again.
Verse 6, children's children are the crown of old men, and the glory of children are their fathers.
Right. So now we started off with, hey, love our children. We are supposed to love our children. We're supposed to be happy about these children. We're supposed to be glad about these children. But in instructing these children, we have to be realistic. And we have to learn that we love these children, but everything comes with a place and a purpose, right? Let's go. Matthew chapter 10, verse 35.
Matthew chapter 10, verse 35. For I am come to set a man at variance against his father, and the daughter against her mother, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law.
So when we hear the words of Christ and we read that, and you start thinking, well, how are they the crown of an old age? And how is a quiver of them, full of them, a joyous thing to a father? It is. But there's certain things that we have to be mindful of. There's going to come a time, possibly, where, guess what? Your children may not agree with this truth anymore. Your children may not agree with the commandments of the Lord. Your children may not agree with you. Read it again.
Verse 35. For I come to set a man at variance against his father, and the daughter against her mother, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law.
Read on.
And a man's foes shall be they of his own household.
Bro, that is a scary thought. To think that one day the people that you would have to go up against are the ones that you've nurtured, you've raised, you fed them, you clothed them, you bought them freaking toys, and feast days came around and they was little, and you watched them be happy for Purim, and you watched them help put up a tent at Tabernacles, and now they've become your enemy. They've become the person that is against you. They become they've become an arrow against you. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's a hard thing to think about. That's a hard thing to swallow sometimes, right? But it's the truth of what we're up against, right? Read on.
Verse 37. He that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And he that loveth son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me.
Now that right there is man, when Christ say stuff sometimes, it's a gut check. You like, man, because nobody thinks, and especially from what we've been taught in the Christian church, Christianity, the lies of Christianity, oh, nothing comes before my children. But that's not what Christ said. Christ said, if you love son or daughter more than me, you're not worthy of me. So what does that mean? How do we process that? How do we handle knowing that I can't love my children more than I love Christ?
That ain't gonna work.
Right. You know what I'm saying? We don't think at all that that's a thing that's really going to happen. We don't, it doesn't cross the normal mind to think that one day your children will be against you. Right? And that's not really even what the vein of the class is about, but it's you parents, us parents, we have to get into the mindset that, guess what? These children that we're raising, that we love so much, that we've seen develop, guess what? They are not more important than the Lord. They are not more important than your own salvation. And I know that sounds bad. It's, you know, to the ears of Christianity, that sounds horrible. What do you mean your children are not worth your own salvation? I'd do anything for my kids. I'd die for my kids. Say what? You mean tell me if my son rejected the Lord, I'm going to die for somebody who said they don't want nothing to do with our Lord and our Savior?
Boy, ain't no way, boy.
Boy, ain't no way, boy. You already know, right? Let's jump down. Let's go to Ezekiel chapter 14 and 14. Ezekiel 14 and 14. Because it comes a time where these harsh realities have to actually be applied. Remember, we go through the scriptures, we study, we pray, and we apply these things, right? So we study the scriptures to learn how to be better fathers and mothers, right? We pray to the Lord for the strength for us to be able to accomplish the things that we read, right? And to apply them. This is what we do it for. So it's not just a cool, catchy phrase or something to put on a shirt. You know what I'm saying? It's the instructions to understanding and application, right? Let's read that. Ezekiel 14 and 14.
Ezekiel chapter 14, verse 14. Though these three men, Noah, Daniel, and Job, were in it, they should deliver but their own souls by their righteousness, said the Lord God.
Right. So our forefathers, Noah, his family was saved. Daniel, him and the three holy children, they were saved. Job received multifold after he endured what he went through, right? But the Lord said that none of them could only be accountable to themselves, to the Lord. Such as us parents, we are only accountable to ourselves, but we are tasked with protecting these souls until the time that they're accountable for themselves. Read on.
Verse 15. If I cause noisome beasts to pass through the land, and they spoil it so that it be desolate, that no man may pass through because of the beasts, though these three men were in it, as I live, said the Lord God. They shall deliver neither sons nor daughters, they only shall be delivered, but the land shall be desolate.
You see that? The Lord said that whatever afflictions he bring upon us in this captivity, or whether it was in our homeland before and what we endure now, he said, though these three men were in it, they could save son nor daughter. The things that we go through, guess what? You can't save your children. You really have to be thinking about, okay, how do I best help them save themselves? You know, as parents, you know, we got to think that we are stewards of the Lord for these souls. That's what we are. We are just watchmen for a time for these souls, right? That's our job, right? So it's not that I can do anything to get my children the kingdom. You can't do anything to get your children the kingdom. A lot of mothers think that they can do something to get their children the kingdom, and or do something themselves. Oh, maybe I should do more of this to get my child to change.
That ain't gonna work.
You can't do that. That's not how this works. So the best thing that you're going to be able to do in this, and is what I'm learning as a father of adult children, the best thing that I can do is help them save themselves, right? So how do we do that? How do we go about helping them save themselves? Because this is the thing. If you have adult children in this truth, there's a high probability that you taught them a lot of things of the world before you got here. And I know that's my particular experience. I can understand that, and I can talk about it because I know it to be true. I taught my children a lot of things of the world before I knew who I was, before I knew my nationality, before I knew who I was according to Christ, before I knew I was more than I thought I was, right? I taught them things. I taught them wicked holidays, and, you know, I taught them principles that aren't really principles. You know, it was just the wickedness of myself, you know, whether I taught them through words or whether I taught them through behaviors. I taught them things that weren't of God, right? And that was one of the things that I had to reckon with myself. You know, hey, I did this thing. I was wrong in this area, but now I have to be in a position and I have to take accountability for what I did. I have to understand what I did. And then I have to be proactive in overriding and rewriting those things that I taught them, right? Deuteronomy 6 and 7. Deuteronomy 6 and 7.
Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 7. And thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thine house.
Go up one.
Verse 6. And these words which I command thee this day shall be in thine heart, and thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children.
So the things that we begin to learn once we come into this truth, when we begin to learn to fix ourselves, when we begin to learn the commandments of God, when we begin to read in the Proverbs and the Psalms and learn to pray and learn how to apply certain things, these words that we learn, we're supposed to teach these things diligently to our children. The things that you've newly learned, you don't have time to consider whether or not now was the right time to teach them, right? We hear a lot of our people in the world, hey, don't teach them that, they too young. Oh, you teaching them Christ is black, they too young. You teaching them about captivity and slavery, they too young. No, they're not too young. You're too late. You're too late because guess what? In the time that you're deliberating about whether it's a good time to teach them, the world is teaching them. The community around us is teaching them. The streets is teaching them. The TV is teaching them. The iPad is teaching them. TikTok is teaching them. YouTube is teaching them. Facebook, Instagram is teaching them. While you're deliberating about if it's the right time to teach them. Read it again.
Verse 7. And thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children.
No, you're supposed to teach them lackadaisically.
And thou shalt teach them diligently.
By chance.
Diligently.
When I get around to it.
Diligently.
You supposed to start looking to reverse those things that you did early. And if you have young children in this truth, you have an advantage if you're teaching them, because you should be teaching them all these things from their youth. You should be putting it in hey, the Lord say this. Hey, I can't get you into heaven if you don't want to be killed by, you know, it's a big black Jesus coming to stomp people's heads in like grapes. Do you know that? You need to be taught this thing diligently. You need to be taught. You don't keep the commandments, you will suffer after death by pain. These are things that have to be taught diligently. Hey, wear your fringes. Hey, have respect for for the elders. They rule well. They watch for your soul. That's considered your parents and the brothers and sisters in this truth. These things that they have to know so that when they come into the body, that your children walk with a sense of respect. Someone knows that, hey, I taught this, you know, look at their family, look at their stock, look how the children move. Why? Because you're teaching them diligently. Read on.
And thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thy house.
Only a Sabbath class.
When thou sittest in thy house.
Oh, no, only in front of company.
When thou sittest in thy house.
You see what the Lord had to actually put, hey, the first place you should be teaching these things are at home. At home. I mean, because it's your responsibility. These are your children. You are the steward for these children. You are the one that's going, hey, you might have to answer for why they went off. I don't want to answer for why somebody went off. I don't want to be the one that offended the little one. You know what I'm saying? I look, a lot of times I think to myself, I can't call what judgment look like. Let me cover all the bases I can cover. You feel me? You don't know what Jesus be like, so, you know what I'm saying? What happened when your little boy was 12? You be like, what you mean? Oh, yeah, he wasn't listening. He was hard-headed. Jesus like, no, you didn't teach him diligently. But he, And guess what? I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm saying, what if it happened? I don't want to have to answer for that. So I will do what? Read it again.
And shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thine house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up.
He said, and when so that means this is a all the time thing. This is an all the time thing. And it's so important because as you begin to have older children, the thing that is so much more testing, or I'm going to say nerve-wracking, is they have to leave your care. When your baby newborn and it's swaddled and, you know, they pushed in a stroller, they can only go where you can go. You know, you get to teach them at home and homeschool, and you get to do all these things, and they're really in your safety all day. But then when you begin to have young adult children, guess what? They begin to learn what captivity really is. Why? Because a lot of them, especially if you have young boys, young men, they have to go out in that world and begin to learn work ethic and how to maneuver. And we teach them, be harmless, wise as a serpent, harmless as a dove. Well, how do they learn to apply that? They have to go out in that world and learn what peer pressure looks like. What it feel like. What it sound like. What it smell like. Your daughters have to learn, and, you know, and you try to keep them as close as you can for as long as you can. But guess what? Sometimes even they want to begin, and you want them to be able to set themselves up and have careers and education and things that they can begin to provide for themselves and, you know, and do for themselves. Because, you know, guess what? Sometime as an older parent, you may not have done the things that you needed to do. So guess what? You may not be in a financial position where your children can just stay at home and you can buy them vehicles and you can, guess what? Everybody's not in that position. So you may have children that have to go out in the world and they have to deal with the hatred of Babylon, the pressures of Babylon. You know what I'm saying? The wickedness and the evilness that's out there. But how will they be girded up? How are they going to be effective in knowing and being able to realize these things and be able to examine them and combat it? You know, when they have to put on the armor of God themselves to understand these things. Read that again.
Verse 7, and thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thine house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up.
Right. So as we have to, and especially as parents of older children, like we can't be so, you know what I'm saying, afraid of what's out there. We do have to be cautious and conscious of what's out there, but this is why we have the scriptures now, and this is why we have to begin to teach the things that we taught askew and wrong immediately. As soon as we begin to learn it, you're supposed to teach it, because it's your job now to gird those young souls, gird their minds, and help prepare them for the next phase that they're going to have to be a part of, right?
This is war.
Right. 2 Maccabees 7:27.
2 Maccabees, chapter 7, verse 27. But she bowing herself toward him, laughing the cruel tyrant to scorn, speaking her country language on this manner, O my son.
So this is the mother of Maccabees with the 7 sons. And as they were torturing her sons and herself, she, you know, in her spirit, she was okay with what was going on. And it said, as we read, and she began to taunt, right, for lack of fear. You know what I'm saying? For, I ain't gonna even say lack of fear, you know what I'm saying? For the application of faith gave her the ability to do that. Read that again.
But she bowing herself toward him, laughing the cruel tyrant to scorn, speaking her country language on this manner. O my son, have pity upon me that bare thee 9 months in my womb, and gave thee suck 3 years, and nourished thee, and brought thee up unto this age, and endured the troubles of education.
Hey, that's the way that this mother is speaking to the tyrant. This is how we almost have to speak to the world outside of the truth. Guess what? Because when they gone, we think of those things. I'm the one that raised you. Especially to a lot of you mothers, because it's a lot of mothers that don't have lords or husbands or hedges over them. And guess what? You still have to raise these children. You still have to instill what's good in them. You still have to instill what's right in them, right? So you have, this is like, this is a type of admonition for mothers and fathers in that position, right? She said, read it again. Verse 27.
But she bound herself toward him, laughing the cruel tyrant to scorn, speaking her country language on this matter. O my son, have pity upon me that bare thee 9 months in my womb, and gave thee suck 3 years, and nourished thee, and brought thee up unto this age, and endured the troubles of education.
She said, I brought you. She said, I kept you in the womb, and I gave you suck, and then I brought you up. Like, when you have to send them out there into that world, like, that is really a hard thing to process. You know why? Because you fear for them. You love them. You care for them. You don't want them to get destroyed by Babylon. You don't want them to go off. And in a way, you want them to stay your little child that you clothed and you bathed and you fed, and the most you had to worry about was skint up knees from running outside, pulling a tooth out. Oh, you understand? But guess what? Now you have to be that parent that is preparing them for a world that wants to kill them. A world that wants to destroy them, that really wants to see them become like everything else, right? And that's a very hard thing, right? Let's go to Leviticus chapter 24. Leviticus chapter 24, verse 10.
Leviticus chapter 24, verse 10. And the son of an Israelitish woman, whose father was an Egyptian, went out among the children of Israel. And this son of the Israelitish woman and a man of Israel strove together in the camp.
All right, so we're going to go into a little bit of history. Because remember, all scripture is written for our learning, right? That's history, right? So we have a mother and her son. Now, this young man decided that, hey, now granted, this is not an Israelite male, right? His mother's an Israelite, but she still had the burdens of education, right? Well, like we just read in the Maccabees, she still carried him. She still gave him suck. She still was the one that had to educate him, even though she educated him in the ways of the Egyptians, but she educated him, right? Read on.
Verse 11. And the Israelitish woman's son blasphemed the name of the Lord and cursed.
So this is the part where we start thinking, like this right here, this is not a baby no more. This is a young man that has the ability to sit and speak vile things, to talk, blasphemous against the God of Israel, to go against whatever his mom taught him, to feel like he could stand toe to toe with another grown man.
That ain't gonna work.
This what this young man was doing, right? Read on.
And they brought him unto Moses, and his mother's name was Shelomith, the daughter of Debri, of the tribe of Dan. And they put him in ward, that the mind of the Lord might be showed them.
So he out there cussing and fighting and carrying on. He's blaspheming the Lord. Ain't no telling what he said. He just came out of Egypt. He a little Egyptian little boy. He whatever. But this is just an example of the danger that our children can find themselves in when they're not taught properly as young children. When they begin to feel like, and I'm saying that to say because it's almost like us coming out of the world, this woman coming out of Egypt, right? The salvation of the Lord was already, the hand of the Lord stretched forth and brought Israel out of Egypt, out of that hard bondage, right? And somewhat, when we walk through the doors of Israel united in Christ and we begin to keep the commandments, it's along those same lines. The hand of the Lord reached out and caught us in Babylon and brought us out of the midst of Babylon, right? Same way with this woman. But this young man, he had the mind of what he had learned. And sometimes our children, before we got here, they have the mind of what they've learned. They have the mind of what's happening in Babylon. They have those ideas because we haven't been fully able to teach them what they need to learn as of yet. Why? Because some of us haven't learned. You got to think, some of us coming to truth, we have only been here 3-4 years, but we have 15 and 16-year-old children. That child has been in the world for 13 plus years before you was beginning to teach them, hey, keep the Sabbath day holy. They used to getting up and going and playing a football game on Saturday morning. You did it with them for 12 years. And then you say, you can't do that no more. That child may have that thing in his mind still. That child was used to getting up and going with you and going to the mall on Saturday. That's when the sale is. Guess what? They may be used to that thing. Or you might have just let them watch whatever they used to want to watch on TV. Now you go, we're not watching that kind of stuff no more. Bruh, I watch HBO. You know what I'm saying? I watch violent killing movies. This is what I watch.
To this day.
You see what I'm saying? So now you begin to try to change the way that young man or that young sister think. When they done been on the internet, they done been on the internet as long as they've been alive. And now you telling them to put the TikTok down? Bruh. You know what I'm saying? They may behave like this Israelitish young boy. Read on.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Bring forth him that hath cursed without the camp, and let all that heard him lay their hands upon his head.
See, bro, like that what you don't want. You don't want your children out here in a position where the Lord got to get in the mix. Like, that's really, bruh, we really protecting them from the wrath of the Lord, because that's what their ignorance and that's what their sin will bring forth. They out there in the midst and they doing all these things, and the Lord is the one going, you know what? You know, I'm about Lil Jerome he done stole his last whatever. I've had enough. You wonder how he always got a new cell phone, because he's stealing them from people at school. And you wonder, like, you know what? No, the wrath of the Lord is going to come upon this child. The wrath of the Lord is going to have to intervene in this, because what I taught him or what I didn't teach him. Read on.
And let all that heard him lay their hands upon his head, and let all the congregation stone him.
Bruh. And guess what? That is a hard thing to accept. That your children had lost their life because they weren't properly instructed. And you know, a lot of times we don't think about, oh yeah, the wrath of the Lord, don't suffer in the wrath. That's the wrath of the Lord, because we come up in Christianity and we have Bible catchphrases. You know what I'm saying? And we'll paraphrase and mock and mimic types of things, but we have no real idea of knowing that our children, once they reach a certain age, they are subject to the wrath of the Lord. Like when we read in Numbers, the Lord said, hey, after a certain age, you can't go into the promised land because you was doubtful. Damn. You understand? So we have to look and think, hey, it becomes an age that our children really are out here defending for themselves. They really out here on their own mission, and they are accountable for themselves, right? Hey, go to Deuteronomy chapter 21. Deuteronomy chapter 21.
Verse 1.
Let me see. Wait. Verse. Start at 17. 18. Start at 18.
Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 18. If a man have a stubborn and rebellious son, which will not obey the voice of his father or the voice of his mother, and that when they have chastened him, will not hearken unto them.
Say, now this is a harsh reality. Sometimes them children just evil. Your little boy evil. That little bad little joker, he is of his father the devil. And guess what? That's a harsh reality. It's hard. And that's why this is a class for parents. Like, these are things that you got to accept. You're going to have to accept that, guess what? Some of your children may just be the devil.
You're going to learn today.
That little sister just might be the devil. You can't, it says when they went to chastise him, he obeyed not. So it's not like correction wasn't coming. It's not like the parents weren't trying to teach the children the laws of the Lord, trying to teach them the commandments. The Lord had to put it in there because guess what? Some of y'all got some evil ass kids. And guess what? You just got to accept it. This little Mickey Ficky is, bruh. I done stood them up in front of the body. They don't care. I done made them do push-ups in front of the prophets. They don't care. And guess what? It is. It's just that. And it hurt. And that's one of the things that as parents, we have to accept being parents of adult children. Right? Read on.
Verse 19. Then shall his father and his mother lay hold on him and bring him out unto the elders of his city and unto the gate of his place.
See, that's where y'all got to be happy that Christ came in. Because if we did not have Christ right now with some of these older children, but y'all be putting brick tomato. I know y'all said, what the heck is brick tomato? Brick to tomato. That's rock to head. That's, you would have to probably put a lot of these little kids to death. Damn. You know what I'm saying? And that's the reality of that's the conditions of the battle, so to speak, right? That some of the children that we have, they are just rebellious children, and it hurts. But remember, Christ said, if you love son or daughter more than me, you're not worthy of me. So you have to weigh that thing. That's one of those things that have to be at the forefront of your mind when you dealing with teaching and educating young and adult children, right? Read on.
Verse 20, and they shall say unto the elders of his city, this our son is stubborn and rebellious. He will not obey our voice. He is a glutton and a drunkard.
That's right. So when we and that's what I'm saying. Like, hopefully you've taught your children, you know what I'm saying, that what the Lord teaches us about sobriety, what the Lord teaches us about drunkenness. That we supposed to learn that little is sufficient. You know what I'm saying? That we're not supposed to be covetousness, because gluttony goes into covetousness. And if he covetous in food, he probably covetous in other things. You know what I'm saying? And we have to be thoughtful and mindful of, once we teaching them, that guess what? Sometimes they just evil. Sometimes they just the Lord decide who he want. You know what I'm saying? So you have to be okay with that. The Lord he told you already, some of your foes gonna be they of your own household. Sons are gonna be against fathers, daughters are gonna be against mothers.
This is war.
You know what I'm saying? And that's as harsh as it sounds, that is the conditions of the battle, right? Go to Sirach, chapter 16. Ecclesiasticus, chapter 16, start at verse 1.
Sirach, chapter 16, verse 1. Desire not a multitude of unprofitable children.
Desire not the multitude of unprofitable children. Like, it's one thing to have that quiver full. It's another thing to have a quiver full of broken arrows. You got a bunch of kids that are, I don't want to say useless, but they are not, for the good, like, they causing problems. You know what I'm saying? Every time you look up, you got a daughter that's just gossiping amongst the young sisters. She corrupting other little sisters out here taking pictures with their tongue out and acting crazy. You got a little boy that won't do nothing. He just come in here dirty, they ain't gonna open his Bible. You know, you be looking and you're like, my God. You know what I'm saying? As a parent, that's one of them things that make you ashamed. You're like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do with this situation? Let's go to Wisdom of Solomon. Hold that. We're gonna go to Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 4, right quick. Verse 1.
Verse 20.
Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 4, and verse 1.
Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 4, verse 1. Better it is to have no children and to have virtue, for the memorial thereof is immortal, because it is known with God and with men.
He said it's better to have some children than to have a good name than have no children. Excuse me. Hold on, I said that wrong. Read it again.
Better it is to have no children and to have virtue.
He said sometimes it's better to have no children and have that good name and have virtue than to have that multitude of unprofitable children. You know what I'm saying? Like, bro, like, as parents, and that's what I'm saying, as parents, this is the mentality that we have to begin to take on to be able to properly guide these older children. You know what I'm saying? Like, we can't be so in love with them and enamored with them that we don't see the evil in them to the point where you're not correcting it, where you're not helping to guide them, right? Go back to Sirach chapter 16. Matter of fact, finish that. I'm sorry. Finish that verse.
Sorry.
Wisdom of Solomon 4:1.
Wisdom of Solomon 4:1. Better it is to have no children and to have virtue, for the memorial thereof is immortal, because it is known with God and with men.
Jump down to verse 6.
Verse 6. For children begotten of unlawful beds are witnesses of wickedness against their parents in their trial.
So guess what? Some of us got to accept. Your child is old. You've been in the truth 2 years. You wasn't married when you had them. They are They are that. They are a witness to the evil that you used to do. It sucks, but it's true. They are a witness to the evil that you used to do. They are a witness to your whoredom. They are a witness to your incontinence. They are a witness to your ignorance. And in your trial, they the thing that's standing out. Because guess what? Yeah, you got baby mamas and baby daddies. And when you talk about that child, you shake your head. I got one. You hear brothers and sisters now, I got one out there in the world. And I like, oh, for real, how old they is? 15. God dang. They 15 and you already shaking your head like they going off. They don't listen. Remember, read that again, verse 6.
For children begotten of unlawful beds.
Right, so your sin, you created those children in sin. You created those children in your ignorance and in your foolishness, read.
Are witnesses of wickedness against their parents in their trial.
They are witnesses against your wickedness. Bruh, that thing hurt. That's one of them things that you'd be like, oh my God, I know why he's so bad. Big Jerome wasn't shit either. That nigga was a steal. All he did was steal. And you wonder why the little boy you got, all he want to do is he good to stick something in his pockets. Or he keeps something going. He's a witness to your wickedness. And it hurt. Go back to Sirach chapter 16.
Sirach chapter 16, verse 1.
Mm-hmm.
Desire not a multitude of unprofitable children,
mm-hmm.
neither delight in ungodly sons.
Right. Do not be, look, sometimes as parents, we really be trying to like spoil them, or you know he ain't doing what you asked him to do, but yet guess what? You try to still buy his love. You know what I'm saying? You try to make it like, oh yeah, you know, he just going through something. You know, he getting there, he doing. No, he's ungodly. You chastise him, he don't care. He's stubborn and hard-headed. He's a drunkard and a glutton. The Lord say, don't delight in that thing. Sometimes you got to be like, you know what, boy? But I ain't messing with you. I can't mess with you. Read on.
Verse 2. Though they multiply.
You got more of them. Read.
Rejoice not in them.
For what?
Except the fear of the Lord be with them.
This is, as parents, how we got to start thinking. Bro, I'm not fooling with you unless I can see the fear of the Lord in you. I might be stuck with you for a while because guess what? I can't put you out. I'm not going to just throw you to the wolves, but guess what? We ain't partners. We ain't friends. We ain't cool. We ain't like that. No, you know why? Because you don't do nothing the Lord say, and then you don't do nothing I say. And as a parent, you're going to have to be okay with being like, you know what? Go ahead, do your thing. Go ahead. Go see what's out there, young fella. It sucks. And it's real, though. And I'm going to keep saying it because these are the thoughts that you're going to have once you're faced with older and adult children. And you don't be want to think, look, you set them out in the street, you thinking about constantly, damn, what they doing? How they living? What's happening with them? You understand what I'm saying? And we have those thoughts in mind, all right? Read on.
Verse 3. Trust not thou in their life.
Right.
Neither respect their multitude.
He said, don't be so caught up in those children and don't be looking at the fact that you got a lot of them. Read on.
For one that is just is better than 1,000.
He said, but guess what? Because if you got that one that's listening, You got that one that's keeping the commandments. You got that one that's hearkening unto what you say, that one that shows a real love for the Lord, one that really shows some repentance towards Christ. He said, better is that one than what?
For one that is just is better than 1,000. And better it is to die without children than to have them that are ungodly.
Hey, he said it's better you take that, hey, you get your own salvation rather than you sitting there, you try to save a whole bunch of badass kids that ain't listening and doing nothing the Lord say. Nah, take that one. Take that one that's listening. As they like to say, pour into them. Pour into the one that's doing what the Lord requires. Pour into that one that shows a real sorrowful heart and a contrite heart toward the Lord. Deal with that one. It's better to deal with that one than to die behind. Man, I'm not finna, bro. Remember, the Lord said that though Noah, Job, and Daniel was in it, they couldn't save nobody but themselves. Bro, I'm not finna to get stomped out by Christ because I couldn't let somebody who did not care about the Lord let them be. That's just an L I can't take. That's just an L I can't take. I'm sorry.
It's gonna work.
Call me a horrible father. I can't take that L. I'm not finna do no eternal damnation and gnashing of teeth because you didn't want to keep the Sabbath. Nah, that ain't the way we working. All right, let's go. Genesis 18. We're gonna speed through this. Time getting short. Genesis 18, start at 19.
Genesis chapter 18, verse 19. For I know him, that he will commend his children.
So this is the Lord speaking about Abraham. And this is the kind of parents that we have to be, especially as men. You know, we have to be the kind of men that will be like Abraham. Read it again.
For I know him, that he will command his children. And his household after him.
So we have to have that mentality that, guess what? I'm not playing with no kids. I'm not pussyfooting around or tiptoeing around no kids. I have to command this house because it could be my salvation on the line and it can be their salvation on the line, right? 1 Timothy chapter 3, start at 1.
1 Timothy chapter 3, verse 1. This is a true saying. If a man desire the office of a bishop, he desireth a good work.
This is if you're going to order and you're going to rule your house, you desire a good work. Read on.
A bishop then must be blameless, the husband of one wife, vigilant, sober, of good behavior, given to hospitality, apt to teach.
All right, so these are just attributes, right? As a man that's going to be ruling his house, a man that has some kind of say in the church of God, guess what? You're going to have these attributes. But they really take hold when you get down to dealing with children. Jump to verse 4.
Verse 4. One that ruleth well his own house, having his children in subjection with all gravity.
He's like, bro, you got to be serious now when you're dealing with these children. Why? Because now, not only are you dealing with your children, you're going to be dealing with the things of God. Bro, I heard Bishop say you cannot be partial when it comes to your children because that shows partiality when it comes to the congregation. You know, some people will really let their children slide with the BS. You got big old children in here, and they keep up more stuff than some grown people. You be like, hey, if you're not going to check them and have your household in subjection with all gravity, how can you do the rest of this? Read on.
Verse 5. For if a man know not how to rule his own house, how shall he take care of the church of God?
Right, because we think we're talking about children, but guess what? A lot of adults come into this body as little children. And it's be our job to help guide them. But you can't even guide your own child at your house. You're not doing what it take to counsel with them properly. And I'm saying counsel because guess what? Your children get to a certain age, you ain't beating them no more. You're not beating no 17-year-old boy. I'm telling you right now, he probably bigger than you. You not finna talk about bow your neck and beat the sides, bro. That ain't working. It's gonna be a point that now, guess what? You have to counsel with this young man. Show him what he needs to do according to the scriptures. Be an ear to be able to help hear the problems that they dealing with, so that you can give them right solutions. The same thing you're gonna have to do when it comes to dealing with men and women in the body, right? Let's go to Sirach chapter 3 and verse 2. We're gonna jump.
Sirach chapter 3 verse 2. For the Lord hath given the father honor over the children.
The Lord has given the father honor. You're supposed to hold yourself in a place of honor amongst these children. You ain't never supposed to bow down to no child to appease them. Don't do it. Why? Because guess what? We just read it. Because when you begin to take care of the things of the church, you don't want to put yourself in that courtesy or cowering position. The Lord already set up what the hierarchy is. You have to be very well established in standing in it as a man. You can't waver when it's time to stand in that position. You got to accept it. Just like you got to accept you can't save them, just like you got to accept that some of them might be evil, you have to accept your position in that house as a man. You got to do it. You got to do it, because you can't lead being double-minded and partial. Read on.
And have confirmed the authority of the mother over the sons.
And guess what? Even you mothers, you have authority over these young men. They not grown. They not out and married yet. These young girls, she not protected by another man. She's still in that house. Guess what? You have to stand in that position of authority. You have to be okay with being that figure, with being that authoritative figure, with being the one that is set with the troubles of education. You have to do it. And guess what? A lot of us, it's not as easy, because guess what? We're still learning. But guess what? That's why you have to apply what you're learning, so that you don't look like a hypocrite when you're doing it. Right? You have to move that way. Right? Where was I? Let's go. Hebrews chapter 12. Hebrews chapter 12. We almost done. It's not that many. Not that many more scriptures. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 6.
Hebrews chapter 12, verse 6. For whom the Lord loveth, he chasteneth, and scourgeth every son whom he receiveth.
So if the Lord has to chasten those who he loves, as a parent dealing with older children, you're going to have to chasten those children. You're going to have to correct them. Because guess what? Like I said, they're doing things. They're not just standing on the couch. You know what I'm saying? You might have a big child that, you know what I'm saying, like to go out the house when he feel like it. Guess what? You're going to have to chasten that child. You're going to have to let them know, hey, I got, what they call those, curfew rules that's in this house. You will not do these things. Right? And there's going to have to be punishments that come. Hey, guess what? I keep a pad, what it is, the deadbolt. I got one on reserve. Next time I tell you to go, don't come in my house late, guess what? But that key don't work no more. I remember one time my son wasn't listening, but I had to put him out. He was probably 16. I was like, hey, bro, nah, you got to go. You're not listening. And and of course, me being, still, I got love for him. I ain't just like, the hell with that nigga. You know what I'm saying? I'm watching him. He outside walking around the neighborhood with nowhere to go. But it was something that I had to do, not to only teach him, but to build myself up. You know what I'm saying? Because we're going to have to make hard decisions as parents. And some parents, they not willing to let those children go. That's showing that, when you chasten, he don't care. Like we read in Deuteronomy. They was chastening him, he didn't care. Hey, all praises to the Lord. I don't have to put raw tomato. You know what I'm saying? We can mash potatoes around here. Man, yeah, man, having to mash potato your own kid. You know what I'm saying? Like, nah, we don't want to have to do that. But guess what? We have to gird ourselves up to be able to do those things. Bro, can you imagine in the wilderness when Christ is talking, you will stab him in the side? So, you know what that's at in Ezekiel? Find me that. With that child that the Lord said even the parents going to kill him. Because, like, bro, I mean, if you can't find it real quick. I know it's, I don't forgot exactly where it is. It just popped in my head. So, we'll come to it later. Go back to Hebrews 12 and 6.
Hebrews chapter 12, verse 6.
Read.
For whom the Lord loveth, he chasteneth, and scourgeth every son whom he receiveth.
Right. So guess what? Every son that we have, the ones that guess what? We will have to correct them. We will have to go through things to teach them the right way. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4.
Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4. And ye fathers, provoke not your children to wrath.
Right. So, you know what I'm saying? The Christian church recite this, and they use this as you making your children mad. No, this is you pretty much leaving your children up by not instructing them, by not chastening them, by not correcting them to the wrath of the Lord. Or what I said earlier, the Lord have to step in and do something to your child. You didn't chasten them. Now, guess what? They go out there in that street and, they decide they won't be at the A-Town Day and shots ring out. Guess what? A-Town Day on the Sabbath. You've been telling them, keep the Sabbath, keep the Sabbath. Guess what? He incurred the wrath of the Lord. He had A-Town Day, caught a hot one. Hopefully it was in his behind where all he learned was I got shot in the ass for not keeping God's commandments rather than his life getting took from him. Right? Read on.
And ye fathers, provoke not your children to wrath, but bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord.
Right. So now you have to bring them up, teach them, the troubles of education. That's what that is. You're bringing them up. You're teaching them these commandments, and you're teaching them to them diligently. Because remember, these are children that are about to get ready to have wives. They probably already have jobs. They're working on careers. They're going to college. They have to endure the peer pressures of college and drugs and parties and hoes if you let them go away from, to go live on campus. Or they had jobs, and guess what? Niggas twerk at McDonald's in the back when they trying to make Big Macs. You got to have a child that can resist that. They go out there and they see the joker at the lunch break, he go behind the trash can smoking blunts. Guess what? They might try to entice your child. You ain't never hit the weed before? Say, what? Damn, you want to hit this? But it's that loud or whatever. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Now, you've never taught your child anything. You didn't bring them up in any of the admonition of the Lord. You didn't tell them they were the greatest people on the earth, that they don't have to stoop this low. You didn't put the fear of the Lord in them that, hey, I don't know what the Lord's wrath may be and what it may look like. If it come on you, don't test it. You know what I'm saying? To the point where they begin to have their own love of the Lord, right? Let's go. Sirach chapter 30.
Also, I had that scripture you want.
Oh, and Ezekiel?
Zechariah 13.
Zechariah, yeah, get that from me.
Zechariah chapter 13, verse 3. And it shall come to pass that when any shall yet prophesy, when his father and his mother that begat him shall say unto him, thou shalt not live, for thou speakest lies in the name of the Lord. And his father and his mother that begat him shall thrust him through when he prophesieth.
Bruh. Bruh, the Lord say when Christ start teaching us over, when you got that loud mouth child that you never corrected, brother, you gonna have to kill him yourself. You say, you know what, Jesus, he always been a loud mouth, don't he? This nigga's a liar and a you know what? Give me the knife. Give me the knife. I got him. Yeah, he hit him with the swing. But guess what? That become because you didn't teach him beforehand. Will you imagine that you never taught your child the Lord let him get to the wilderness just so you would have to kill him? Bro, that's a hell of a thought to be having to think about. Damn. Better teach him now while you got a chance. All right, let's go. Sirach chapter 30. Verse 2.
Sirach chapter 30, verse 2. He that chastises his son shall have joy in him, and shall rejoice of him among his acquaintance.
Right, because you correct your son, and when you're amongst the brothers and sisters in the body, or you see how they move in the world, now guess what? You can have joy of them. You be like, damn, my son really a stand-up guy. Dang, man, my daughter is really shamefaced, and she, you know what I'm saying, she hold herself chaste. I'm happy for that thing. I'm glad for that thing. Read on.
He that teacheth his son grieveth the enemy. And before his friends he shall rejoice of him.
Right. You saying because some of us grow and we get to see our sons went from little boys, young prophets, to now they want to be MOV. Some of them already up to soldiers. And that's one of those things that you can, you joyful in. And you see them and they holding their own. They not doing it anymore because you're making them come. They're doing it now because you did teach them when they were young and when they were being reared up and when they were growing to have their own fear and their own love of the Lord. So now they begin to do it for Christ on their own. They do it on their own now. And guess what? You hear the other brothers in the body like, boy, your boy doing the thing out there. So I'm reading at the blitz. You be like, yeah. You know what I'm saying? You holding the little tear back. My little picture, my nigga. He doing it. You know what I'm saying? You can feel that way because you did chasten them, because you did correct them, because you never let them go so far away when you was bringing them up to now that they're at the age where they could be doing these things on their own. You have a joy of them. Read on.
Though his father died, yet he is as though he were not dead, for he had left one behind him that is like himself.
And guess what? All the men in Israel want this. There's not a man in Israel that does not want this.
That's right.
But it's only one way to get it. You have to be one of those parents that are instilling into your children as they are older children, and especially those of us who had taught wrong before we knew the truth, before we knew what Christ wanted from us, before we knew our nationality. We had to correct those things. Sirach chapter 11, verse 7. So this is one of those things that, as I was thinking about it, I said, well, how do I do that with an older child? How do I not continue to try to put my child in a place of, I'm grown, do what I say? You know what I'm saying? We already know honor thy father and thy mother. Father and mother, we taught you that. We've learned those things already. But now, as you become older, I'm not punishing you and taking your tablet and your game. And, now it's more like, give me my car keys. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's a whole different ball game than turn off the TV. It's like, give me my car keys back. You know what I'm saying? Like, those things become more difficult. Or when you want your child, you want your son to learn to be a man and to be able to speak as a man and not be bashful. How do you begin to teach those things? Read that. Sirach chapter 11, verse 7.
Sirach chapter 11, verse 7. Blame not before thou hast examined the truth. Understand first and then rebuke.
So guess what? Now, when you have those older children, you have to start listening to what they're saying. When you got a little toddler and they like, I don't want to take a bath, you're like, shut up, you dirty, go wash. But when you have an older child and you're asking them questions, you have to begin to learn to see how they think. The same thing we have to do with brothers and sisters in the body. You have to be able to hear what they're saying so you can give proper guidance, so you can give proper counsel.
That's right.
Because if you keep putting them in the place of a child, guess what? You'll begin to resent them as hard-headed, but guess what? You never listened to what their mind is developing to. It was always, shut up, I'm the adult. And guess what? When you're teaching older children, you have to be able to hear exact, because you can't give good counsel if you don't hear the matter. Read it again.
Blame not before thou hast examined the truth.
Shut up, I'm the daddy. You can't do that after a while. After a while, you actually got to say, so son, what happened? Tell me, explain to me what you saw, or what happened on the job, or what happened between you and the brother that, let me know what happened. Talk to me, let me hear. Read on.
Blame not before thou hast examined the truth. Understand first, and then rebuke.
Right. So you have to get to a part where you understanding this so that, guess what, you can give them good counsel so that you can begin to teach them how you think as a man, how they should think as a man. All right? Jump down to verse, Sirach chapter 30, verse 7.
Sirach chapter 30, verse 7. He that maketh too much of his son shall bind up his wounds, and his bowels will be troubled at every cry.
He says, so, but guess what? Even in that, you don't go into the point where they can't be wrong. Oh, my son always right because you giving him a chance to hear them out. He's like, nah, he gonna mess you up. He gonna get you jacked up. Read on.
Verse 8. And horse not broken becometh headstrong.
Right. So guess what? Even in you still not correcting him, if you don't correct that young man, guess what? They could become headstrong or stubborn or hard-headed. Read.
And a child left to himself will be willful.
Right. And so you have to be you still have to be understanding that, guess what? You still are my child. You're just an older child now. And I have to begin to teach you in adult ways because you don't want that child to become stubborn and hard-headed. You know what I'm saying? Because you still have to tell them, even though you 20, we ain't friends. I mean, we ain't partners. We ain't on the same level. You know what I'm saying? You miss me with that. You know what I'm saying? I'm still the head of this household. You just older, and I'm just trying to show you respect as an older man so that you know how to do it as an older man or as a older woman. You know how to listen and solve problems with older women, right? Let's go to 1 Samuel chapter 2 and verse 2.
1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 1. And Hannah prayed and said,
I'm sorry, jump to verse 12. I'm sorry.
Verse 12?
Yep. 1 Samuel chapter 2 and verse 12.
1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 12. Now the sons of Eli were the sons of Belial. They knew not the Lord.
This was our forefather Eli. Now this was a man of God. He taking care of the things of the Lord. But his sons was the damn devil. His sons was the damn devil. Read.
And the priest's custom with the people was that when any man offered sacrifice, the priest's servant came while the flesh was in seething with a flesh hook of 3 teeth in his hand.
So it was part of the customs of the Levitical priesthood. You know, the pot had the meat boiling. You take the hook, you grab whatever come out. That's your portion. Right? Okay, we read that in the Levitical in the laws of Levi. Let's go. Read.
And he struck it into the pan, or kettle, or cauldron, or pot, all that the flesh hook brought up the priest took for himself. So they did in Shiloh unto all the Israelites that came thither. Also, before they burnt the fat, the priest's servant came and said to the man that sacrificed, give flesh to roast for the priest, for he will not have sodden flesh of thee, but raw.
Right, so now these brothers around here, they was dragging the people. They were like, hey, let me get that. They was like, hey, before you break that, let me get that piece of lamb leg right there. That's what's up. No, I ain't boiling that. Let me get that. I want that. But this is just an example of a man that we would look at and say, this is supposed to be a man of God. He's supposed to be leading the people. He's supposed to lead his house aright. But his sons is the damn devil. They the damn devil, right? They the devil at the temple. Read on. Jump to verse. Read on.
Verse 16. And if any man said unto him, let him not fail to burn the fat presently, and then take as much as thy soul desireth, then he would answer him, nay, but thou shalt give it me now. And if not, I will take it by force.
So these brothers they was coming to the temple to repent and give their sacrifices and their offerings. And these boys strong-arming the people at the church, at the temple. He like, hey, I don't want to give you my sacrifice. He's like, you going to give it to me? I'm going to take it. Easy way or the hard way? Which way you want to do it? To the point of what? Read 17.
Wherefore the sin of the young men was very great before the Lord. For men abhorred the offering of the Lord.
It's like these brothers were so evil that they had the people of Israel hating to even come to the temple to offer anything to the Lord. Bro, that is the example of us not teaching our children. Because these brothers was freaking terrorists to the people, as are some of your children. They are freaking terrorists in these schools. Guess what? You got to check them. And if they not terrorists at the school, they are terrorists at the house. They terrorizing your other children, the one that want to do good, to the point where your other kids say, well, hell, if you ain't going to do nothing to him, why I need to act right? So you got to be mindful of that as parents, all right? Couple more scriptures. Let's go. Luke chapter 15, verse 11. Luke 15, verse 11.
Luke chapter 15, verse 11. And he said, a certain man had 2 sons. And the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the portion of goods that falleth to me. And he divided unto them his living.
So this is another example. Our forefather saying, okay, look at this. You got 2 sons. He been teaching them, been giving them everything that they want. But guess what? Sometimes, like I said, your children want to go out there and they want to go see what is out there. You've been teaching them, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. Keep the commandments. Guess what? They want to see. Why? Because the world look tempting through the eyes of a flat screen or a tablet. Read on.
And not many days after, the youngest son gathered all together and took his journey into a far country. And there wasted his substance with riotous living.
Right. So this son, he went out, and guess what? He started living it up. And guess what? As in some of our older children will probably do. They're going to go out there, and they're going to be wanting to live it up. They're going to say, give me my money, give me my peace. I'm grown. Let me go do X, Y, Z. I want to go check it out. Read.
And when he had spent all, there arose a mighty famine in the land.
So now he outside broke, and he ain't got no money. Ain't nobody got no food. And guess what he doing? Read.
And he began to be in want. And he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country.
Right. Jump down to verse 8. So we're going to paraphrase it for time. So he got on hard times. Right? He got on hard times. Stuff got bad. Jump down to verse 18.
Verse 18. I will arise and go to my father, and will say unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before thee.
Now, we know that this is a parable of the kingdoms, but we can look at this and say, this is one of those things that we can hope for if our children to go off. You hope that they go out there and whatever happened to them, the Lord don't kill them, but they able to catch themselves because you did teach them. This father, he had apparently taught his children so that when things got hard and that son began to see what the world really had for him, he was able to come back to what he had. He's like, say, you teach them that they will not depart from it, right? So when he was in this position, he was like, okay, I know where to fix this situation. Let me go back to my father and tell him, you know what, Dad, you was right. I messed up, but I want to get myself together. Jump down to verse 32.
Verse 30. But as soon as this thy son was come, which hath devoured the living with harlots, thou hast killed for him the fatted calf. And
so one brother was blowed. The one that was always at the house, he was blowed. He was like, he was out there kicking it with the hoes and in the streets. But when he came back, you threw a party for him. But I've been here with you the whole time. And so we paraphrase. You'll have to read through it, right? Jump down to verse 32.
Verse 32. It was meet that we should make merry and be glad, for this thy brother was dead and is alive again, and was lost and is found.
So guess what? Like, that's the thought. Sometimes that's the best outcome that you could hope for, that your children can catch themselves. Let's go last scripture, Deuteronomy chapter 32 and verse 10.
Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 10. He found him in a desert land, and and in the waste howling wilderness, he led him about. He instructed him. He kept him as the apple of his eye.
So when the Lord found Moses, and then he told him, this is what I want you to do, he began to tell Moses all that he wanted for him. He began to instruct Moses, and he kept Moses as something valuable to him. We got to keep these children. They're still valuable to us. We can't love them more than the Lord, but it is our job to instruct them and keep them as something valuable to us. Remember, it is a crown of the Lord to have these children. And sometimes we treat them as so until they show us they evil and they go away from the Lord, then guess what? You instruct them the best as you can. Last script, Psalm chapter 32 and verse 7.
Psalms chapter 32, verse 7. Thou art my hiding place. Thou shalt preserve me from trouble. Thou shalt compass me about with songs of deliverance. Selah.
Read.
I will instruct thee and teach thee in the way which thou shalt go.
That's what you have to do. You got to instruct and teach your children in the way that they shall go. Read on.
I will guide thee with mine eye. Be ye not as the horse or as the mule, which have no understanding.
Right. So he says that you teaching your children, you let them know, don't be as a stubborn animal that can't learn, that don't have no way of understanding where it's got to go. It's only led, by force. Don't be like that. I'm trying to show you so that the way that you could preserve your own life. Read on.
Whose mouth must be held in with bit and bridle.
Yeah, that's what he was saying. You got to be instructed by force. You got to be led by force. Read.
Lest they come near unto thee. Many sorrows shall be to the wicked. But he that trusteth in the Lord, mercy shall compass him about.
Right. This is what we want to teach our children. The evil things that's out there, they out there. It ain't no shortage of that evil stuff. It ain't no shortage. But if you're righteous, guess what? You following the commandments, you're following what I'm teaching you, what I'm doing my best to teach you as somebody, as learning it, and me being in the same position. Like, I ain't never was a father of a grown child before. You know what I'm saying? But I'm trying my best to help you preserve your life. All right, read on.
Be glad in the Lord and rejoice, ye righteous.
That's right. All right, I got one more scripture. Sirach chapter 32 and verse 20, and that's it. Sirach chapter 32 and verse 20.
Sirach chapter 32, verse 10.
No, 20.
Sirach chapter 32, verse 20. Go not in a way wherein thou mayest fall, and stumble not among the stones. Be not confident in a plain way, and beware of thy own children.
Hey, do not be no pushover for these children, okay? Then don't put yourself in a position where you're going to be a hypocrite and catch yourself up, right? So, and in your instruction, just make sure that you're being clear, you're walking upright, and that you are doing what you can to be a good example to those elder children that you have. And with that, we say shalom.
Shalom, Israel. This is Bishop Nathaniel. I want you to know that you can view all our Sabbath classes live on IUIC TV. That's right, I said on IUIC TV. Download the app today. Shalom.
What is nation? Nation is family. Nation is community. Nation is men leading by example. Nation is women's support. Nation is children with role models. Nation is unity. Nation is